Joining us now, though, is Nat Keohane, president of the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions. He's formerly served as special assistant to President Obama for energy and environment. Nat, welcome to the Business Briefing.
Thanks for having me on.
So, Nat, you're here to talk about extreme weather and its associated costs. And I think many of us are familiar with the concept that the volatility of the weather is increasing. We're getting more and more extreme weather. Tell us what the data shows.
Sure. So, as first, just exactly as you said, what we see if you look across wildfire or heat waves or floods or droughts, all of the signals are pointing to more volatility, as you said, more extreme weather events. And we can tie that back to climate change. We know we're putting more energy into the atmosphere. We're putting carbon pollution into the atmosphere. That's leading to those things. And it's not just that you recognize it in your day-to-day lives. If you have listeners in the Midwest, in the East Coast, we've seen wildfire smoke from Canada again this year, producing haze, making it harder to breathe. Scientists say we're on track for record-shattering wildfire season this year from Canada. We've also seen flooding events so far this year that have been really deadly, and we're not even to hurricane season. Now, all of this has an economic cost. If you look at the number of $1 billion extreme weather events, in other words, extreme weather events in the U.S. that cost more than $1 billion, there were 27 of those last year. That number keeps climbing. It's a trend that keeps going up and up and up, and it's one that reflects the real economic costs we're seeing and the human costs from these extreme weather events.
So talk to us about the business community and how they've been impacted and are reacting to these increasing costs due to weather volatility.
Sure. So when we talk to businesses, and we have a number of Fortune 500 companies we work with, and we talk much more broadly with hundreds of companies, we see a couple of things. One is on the extreme weather piece that we're talking about. Businesses are thinking about how do they become more resilient to those effects of climate change because those costs hit them as well. But there are also other aspects of cost that we need to be thinking about here. In the energy sector, we're looking at a real supply crunch in the electric power sector over the coming years, and that also has costs. We're seeing rising electricity demand for the first time in over a decade, and that means we're seeing that from AI, from data centers, and that means rising costs for businesses for their energy costs. That means rising costs for households, and of course that is compounded by the need to invest so that the electric power sector is resilient to those same extreme weather events. So when we think about the cost of this, and I want to make sure we get to talking about the solutions, but the costs here for businesses and for households are both from that extreme weather event that's rising, those events that are happening more and more, but also from the challenges of an energy sector that's resilient to those and that can keep up with rising energy demand. And that kind of is a double whammy on the bottom line for businesses and households.
So, there's much conversation about AI, the rising importance of AI to the economy, but also the energy utilization impact of AI. Talk to us about that, how we can prepare for that in terms of the energy utilization and potential impact on the environment.
Yeah, so, I'll say right off, we know the solutions to this. It's just putting more clean energy on the grid. We're just putting unnecessary barriers to that. So, let me take a step back on AI. We see, for the first time, for a long time, the U.S. had flat electricity demand. Even as we grew the economy, we were more efficient in using electricity. And so we didn't need to put a lot of new electric power generation on the grid. That is changing. You're seeing data centers go up around the country, both to meet the growing demand for data and computing, but especially for artificial intelligence or AI. And so what you're seeing is rising electricity demand. You're seeing that from new factories that are going on the grid. That's a good thing, but it also increases energy demand. And so you're seeing increasing strain on the power grid, and we've got, aging facilities and aging resources. The quickest and the best way to put power on the grid right now is solar power plus battery storage. The solar power is cheap. You get it when the sun shines, and then you put the batteries on so you have the power there when the sun's not shining. But we're making it harder with tariffs and with rolling back government policies that provide credits for that wind and solar. We're making it harder to do that. And the result is, instead of putting more and more clean energy on the grid, we're pulling back just when that energy demand is rising. And if we don't do something soon, that's going to lead to a real affordability crunch and a reliability crunch as we see rising stresses and rising costs on the grid.
And thanks so much for joining us today. Obviously, you do some very important work. Tell us where we can learn more about the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions and where we can follow you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And I'll just say, look, we have the solutions here, and we know how to put them on. We just need to do more with that. We're at c2es.org, and we do a lot of work, as I said, with businesses and policymakers to try to get those solutions in place. And we are on the cusp of a real clean energy economy that can be booming for everyone, and that's the vision that we're trying to get out there.
Nat, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks so much.
That's Nat Keohane, president of the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions, formerly served as Special Assistant to President Obama for Energy and Environment.